Mike was one of the first people I met when I moved to California, because I moved here and I worked at DC.
You worked at DC?
DC moved me to California. And Mike was always so cool to me. I was like new, I didn't know anybody. I was just probably hella Jersey. My boss was like such a bitch. Like, she was so crazy. I quit after 4 months. Yeah. Because like I just moved to California, she was so lame to me and I quit, and I was always so bummed because those guys were always so cool to me and so fun, but I had this crazy boss that I couldn't even tolerate. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm working for like the ultimate company. Within like 2 weeks, I was like, this chick sucks. I don't want to be here anymore.
Jeez, that's quick.
But you weren't, your desk wasn't in the skate room?
No, it was across the hallway. And so I would go over there as much as I could, but her desk was across
She was like directly across.
So she would see when I was in there, and then I would get shit. I was under surveillance. And I went to HR about my boss. I was like, my boss is cursing at me in front of other coworkers and like calling me stupid and shit. Like, I don't know how to handle this. Like, I was brand new.
So you snitched?
Yeah, I snitched. I've always been bummed because that room of dudes was so cool to me and so fun, and then like that only lasted like 4 months.
Well, now we're here.
Yeah.
I like that time of DC because I remember going in, I think Mike had just put up all these prints and pictures all framed, you know, like couple $100 frames and all this stuff, like all over the office. I flew into California one time and I went there and I looked at all the pictures. I was like, damn, those are sick. And just boop, 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 snatched them all, put them all in my car. Because I think my car at the time was in California for something and it was getting shipped back, and I just loaded it with all the pictures from the office, shipped them back with my car, and I swear I got in trouble for that, but nobody brought it up to me. They were like bitching, maybe to you. Did they say anything to you about that?
I think so, yeah. What are you gonna do? He's in the picture. He can take it.
Well, it wasn't just
You're
me,
allowed to
though.
steal
It
a
was
photo
like
of yourself.
Stevie and
it's like an unwritten
Dave
rule.
and just, it was probably a couple $1,000 worth of,
Well, it may have been.
if not pictures, frames, you know. I still have a couple hanging in my house here.
Josh has been more on the skate side, but you've been a lot on the DC side, where you get to work with Ken, who's this like visionary dude, and then you're with Danny, who's this like visionary dude, like Robbie Madden, like all those crazy projects that are happening. What's it like being a part of all that stuff?
It's sick. I mean, I'm super lucky to know, like, and be friends with dudes like Ken and Robbie and, you know, everyone. It's insane. You know, like Damon, like all those dudes. It's been rad.
Like he's witnessed, I guess, some of the gnarliest action sports things ever accomplished.
Right.
Were you there for the Robbie Madison thing? And,
yes.
And then all the Gymkhana stuff and the
yeah.
Great Wall. To think of all those things that he's shot, like.
No, there was a time where
mega ramp stuff.
Yeah, you were drunk when you shot the first mega ramp stuff?
Yes, it's safe to say. Well, I mean,
I read that for the first time last night, and like it was some little tidbit in an interview somewhere, and I was like, wow.
yeah, I mean, the mega ramp was in Awanga, California, which is literally in the middle of nowhere. And a lot of times we would camp there, and we'd stay for days on end. But I knew that what Danny was doing was so significant. I never missed a single session the whole entire time we were filming. I mean, we were just sitting in a field, like literally all day. And the ramp was like 100 yards long, and he would just take a fucking golf cart up to the top, and you're just like posted, you know? So we'd just sit in the bushes and pound beers and fucking, and I never fucked anything up. If I had, I would definitely have, you know, gone dry out in the woods, but
I mean, that's crazy to think about, because so many iconic photos came out of that, and just thinking that you were drunk is pretty rad.
well, let's say I was buzzed heavily.
Danny's the he's the gnarliest dude.
Yeah.
I remember I sat down at dinner, maybe it was with you guys, and Danny was talking about what did he say he was trying to do? A front side 540 something or other across the ramp, and I was like, I don't want to see that shit. Like, I don't care about a front side 540, you know? He's like, well, what do you want to see? I want to see that tray flip. And
Sick.
I think it was like 2 weeks later or something like that.
Oh, that's right, he called you, huh?
Shoots me a text message, and he was like, made it, bitch. That was it. No photo, no nothing. And I was like, what? And I think it was Mike or somebody that told me that he made a 50-foot no-handed tray flip. I was tripping on that.
Wow.
Yeah, he's the illest though, man.
Speaking of this iconic photo, the 360 flip from Love, what was the story at the time? Were you going out there just to shoot that?
I think I filmed it already, and then you got orders, or you wanted to, or somebody was like, hey, he just did that, you need to go shoot it, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, your shoe was coming out, and you had already filmed it, and you had actually already shot it with someone, and there was like a Polaroid of it. You showed me a Polaroid, and it was a straight on angle of it, and I was just like, dude, like, we got to go do that again. So that's why you went back out and did it again. Yeah, I flew out there specifically to do that.
All I remember is that shit was a pain in the ass to do.
Again.
And I remember the kids sitting on the bench. I kept telling them after every try, like, it ain't shit, right? And they'd be like, it ain't shit. And I would go back and I counted pushes, you know?
Yeah.
So I remember, I think it was like 4 or 5 pushes every time, and we ended up getting in. I remember not being that happy with it because my toe was hanging off the back. I don't know. It's always up to this dude.
You know what's sick in that one though is the photo that you pull from the still is actually one from the actual make, right?
Yeah.
Which normally that's the sequence.
Yeah.
But normally they'll like pull us, if you do that, they'll pull like the most caught one or the most boned out one or whatever the trick may be from something else, and then the make is a different one, right?
Yeah.
You've done that probably several times.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, that one was just, we shot it and went to a lab, got the film processed, because I, didn't have a darkroom obviously there, and just got the film processed.
You don't have a darkroom on the East Coast, too?
No,
one in fucking Michigan?
I'm not balling like that, no.
That was pre-2004.
Oh, okay.
But it's funny looking back on it, like I shot it with some like new kind of Kodak color print film that came out, and I was just, even still to this day, I look back on it, I'm like, why the fuck did I use that film? Like, it sucks, What
would you have shot with?
T-Max or Tri-X.
Okay.
And saved it and processed it myself. I didn't trust any lab really, like I always processed my own black and white film, and I had one lab in particular that would do all my slide film. So
Didn't something similar happen with the Costin back nose one though? Didn't you say it was film that you weren't sure why you used it or something?
Oh, well that was because Rick and Eric were skating both sides of Hubba, so I couldn't light any one particular side up because it wasn't possible. And so I went to CVS or Walgreens or whatever and got like 3200 speed print film. It was like the shittiest film ever. And it was like underexposed because it was dark as shit. So I had it, what's called a snip test done. So then what they do is they pull out a little bit of film, like this much film, they process it, and then you can look at it, and if it's too thin or what, you can get it developed even longer. So I got it developed like a stop and a half too long, so like overdeveloped it to compensate for underexposing it, and that's why that
it looks like a little
hella grainy
or something.
Yeah, it's just like flat and grainy, and like that's why it looks that way.
It's just crazy to think about like how iconic those photos are and important those moments are.
Yeah.
And they were on like, you sort of like winged it.
But do you look at the Costin back nose one and think like, fuck? Because we all look at it as like, God, that's so amazing.
No, I'm stoked that happened that way.
Yeah.
How is it for you? So you're able to shoot with somebody who you've been friends with since you were a kid. Like, there's obviously a level of comfort and trust there for you.
Yeah.
Working with him this long.
100%. But now, since I've known him so long, like, I'll be like, hey, I want to shoot this. And he'll be like, okay, Lewis, come on, man. You really want to shoot that? And I'm like, yeah, man. All right, I'll use it for Instagram. You know what I mean? Or something like that.
Oh, Blaze, tough crowd over here.
But we've been shooting together for so long. Like, that's cool. He can tell me that stuff. You know what I mean? Because I get lost in my era and what I still think is cool and what looks good. But this guy gets to shoot, like, he's shot all the eras. You know, he's on the new shit, the old shit. He's on
the vert shit.
Everything. You know what I mean? And so I get to learn a lot about, what currently looks rad, not just, what I think looked rad from the previous eras, Or we get coffee.
But what is that? you have a unique perspective on all of it, and I think more people do. They're just not as vocal or as opinionated as you are, but you have this love for your era, and which is all of our, like, all 4 of our eras. You're vocal about prolonging that zone, that thing, and you're really opinionated on what the new trends and fads in skating are. So many people are afraid to talk shit on that, but you aren't.
Well, to me, I don't know. To me, it's an aesthetic. I like looking back at the photos of like Jason Lee or Nodis.
Sure.
And then like Kareem Campbell, and I'm just all about like what skateboarding looks like and the aesthetics. And nowadays, it just seems like anything goes. It doesn't matter. You could do all the crazy late flip, super sloppy, just to get your views and your likes and all that shit. And it's like nowadays there's so much indoor skating, or skate park skating and stuff like that. I think really that's what's going to be their biggest issue looking back on, how long their careers can go on for.
10 years down the road, you can't put a fucking photo on a t-shirt. Like, I just bought one from Grant of Hensley. You can't run a fucking photo skating a box indoors and it'd be iconic, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
I think that's pretty much, you know what I mean? Or,
I agree with you, but I'm clarifying. Is that what you're trying to?
Yeah, you know what I mean? And then with the YouTuber, I'll call them like YouTuber pros, you know, or like Instagram shock and wow value, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't really see it holding water like 15 years from now.
Right.
But that's all.
Because everybody could go and skate their park and have a great old, or a curb right down the street and have the best time ever.
Yeah,
but
you know what? I don't diss those kids.
I don't think you diss any kids, but
yeah, when I talk a lot about skating, I'm always talking about, you know, the industry side of it. Correct. You know what I mean? And what it looks like, because that's where it's being presented, is in the magazines and, you know, stuff like that. It's frowned upon to hate on shit, you know what I mean? But the reality is
it
like,
though? Like, because
fuck yeah, it is.
You get feedback from being.
Well, I just don't. You know what I mean? I suck it up, or I'll talk to, like, you know, whoever we're with.
I thought you were vocal on a couple of those things, like talking about how shoes should be a certain way, the cup soles, the way a dope shoe looks dope, and these fucking little slippers that people are making aren't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you got to be careful with that stuff too. You know, you can't be a bully and shit like that anymore. You know what I mean? It's a new era, and you know, if you're stuck too far in the past, you got to be open-minded. Right. You know what I mean? And now I'm just extremely picky on what I like. You know, but it's getting hard because, you know, the inner city style skating you don't see as much anymore. It's still there.
Right, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's still there.
I think more than ever now.
I think so too. But it's harder for people to, you know, use that in a marketing way, because even though the inner city is there, the plazas aren't there. So there's not like people sitting in one spot creating an aesthetically pleasing environment. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Everyone's bouncing around, and filmers and photographers or companies or whoever it is wants to bounce around with them. And how can they tell a story if it's just being bounced around, you know? Right. Places like EMB and Love Park and even Pier 7 and Pulaski, there was always a story, you know what I mean? And companies can use those for great marketing strategies, right. You know? And then do things like they did for me and Stevie, for example. But nowadays, you just can't tell that story.
Do you think maybe Brazil's the only frontier it's really kicking on? Maybe Barcelona as well, still holding on to that, and maybe a fabric of that, what it used to be?
I think to a point, but there's just so many people that come in and out of those scenes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, Barcelona could very well have it, but literally they have like 15 countries of people coming in and out weekly. What's the story? Who's the focus?
Just to hit and get their tricks and get out?
The plaza doesn't become a community as much.
Exactly.
How cool though, like, I feel like you become the ambassador to these plazas. Like, you become like the mayor of all the like plaza scenes. It's kind of rad.
It's cool, but
not saying you're trying to do that, but you care enough about skateboarding. Even back to what he was saying about you being opinionated or vocal. What's cool about you is it comes from a place of you caring about skateboarding so much. It's not just you wanting to talk shit on a guy wearing overalls or whatever.
Yeah, but that's fun too. You know what I mean? Like, look, I love stereotyping. I love talking shit. I love, like,
but I feel like you're trying to protect it.
You know what I mean? Having fun with all that type of stuff. But nowadays, the internet trolls and the Instagram trolls, and like, dude, seriously, somebody could ruin your whole shit. You know, they can't read the emotion or the sarcasm in comments. So if you say something wrong, I mean, dude, screenshot, sent. Next thing you know, you got Ride Channel calling you, being like, "Hey, you want to make a quote on? You want to comment on this?" That, and the other, and it's just like being on this side of the playing field. Mm-hmm. You know, I got to be careful. Everyone should have a fair shot to try to make it in, you know, as a pro skater, you know, whatever it is. So it's like, who am I to make fun of them, to trying to get to this point that even I was at. You know what I mean? So I've just backed off, and, you know, me and my 5-year-old make fun of everybody. You know what I mean?